you know, maybe there might be solutions for it in the ban phase. I'm not sure what G2 might lead in, but we know that FaZe is probably going to go the same way. And there it is, Dockerby removed first of all. That's pretty consistent. They just really hate going against Dockerby. The Ying is the response. I'm curious to see if we might get maybe an Azami, maybe a playback. It's a powerful operator, but FaZe have been using her so well.
I think FaZe have been using her more effectively than they have been on G2, but that's mostly due to, I'm sorry to say it, but Doki having the tendency to die a bit early. So only having 2 barriers tossed up, then dying with the rest in pocket. Happened like 3 rounds or something where playing Azami.
Okay.
FaZe instead are going to do it.
Okay. I mean, you know, I guess that's the thing. It's obviously their own mindset. For my money, they were using her more powerfully.
Yeah.
They probably just don't want to deal with it here because, as I said, it is a hefty defender-sided or defender-driven map. You have more limitations, and they think that they can utilize those the same way they used the Azami to potentially push on the previous ones and drive that idea further forward. Hey. It's an Azami-less showdown. I guess let's see if it works in G2's favor. You've got, at the start of this, a bit of a smoke war. You've got ourselves down towards throne, the backline site, the sort of holding pen on the corner of this. And with a couple of smokes and a man who can look through them and somebody who can look through electronics, this might turn into a bit of a bloodbath.
It could become a bloodbath. IQ at least 6 picked out, or re-picked out, will become a line for now. G2 is not going to be playing that game of trying to find the person scanning their own electronics with their own electronic scanner. Vanawars are going to be set up on 2 of the 3 double walls, which means that the barrels is going to be remaining a little bit weak compared to the rest. Drones are coming through. Blur is going to be figuring that out quickly as well. But to counteract that bit of a weaker wall, there's going to be players right above barrels the entire time. Which means that G2 will have to clear out that side of the map first if they do want to go for set breach. So it might just be more worth it to just go for a completely different approach that way. Grenade for a hatch use, that is...
It's a use of it.
It's a use of it. Never really too happy to see it.
There's a couple of pings on players. Benja, he's trying to sneak his way around. There seems to be a bit of motion just on the back end, but he's holding off and hoping the rotate happens towards the site. There's one. There's the back of one other. They can't get the connection. Cyber with the C4 at the same time. Too many targets, and unfortunately Benja was a bit blurred between all of them. The room was suddenly flooded. And FaZe had a quick reaction there to be able to pull the kill onto the back of it.
There was some good shepherding from G2. I mean, they managed to clear out the roamers quite quickly. It's just that Benji got overwhelmed by like 3 people running at him at the same time there. Doki will find a response. That's Cyber taken off the board. It's the Capcan as well. Might still be some of the enter denial devices around and about they need to be careful of. Especially on the side doors, because Throne Room is known to be a site where attackers often run out of time, where suddenly they have to go for a last Hail Mary push in the last 20 seconds on that clock. And that's when those EDDs are very effective, but by just checking, I don't see any of them currently on the board or on any of the doors. So they might be more spread around on the actual top floor.
In terms of theme throughout these 2 teams as well, throughout this tournament, the theme has generally been a little bit back and forth, but away from them more than anything. It's as you would expect. They've done better on their defenses. W7M were able to beat G2 on it in an 8-7 sort of showdown. FaZe lost against M80 on the map as well, but G2 also had a very strong performance against Koi. Oh, there's a bit of a break, a limit of
soft breach only instead of the hard.
Yeah, so they've found themselves eyeing up in towards it, and without the route through. There's one take though. There's somebody close to the left. There's a second handed to them. Blur. He's sort of playing shooting ducks right now, but with 20 seconds, they got to see if they can try and get those ducks in the line, march them in the sight, and get the kit down. Cover from Doki. Lets the other 2 in. Souls pre-fires the dragon door, but he's tucked around on the back end of a corner. The 3 versus 1. One of them's getting the diffuser down. They have a little bit of wiggle room and a lot of cover and a lot of the range. They're trying to find the tail end. The Claymore almost put him into the fight, but Alamau pulls pulls it back, and 2 bodies gone at the start. Leads to a woohoo at the end.
Of course, oh my God, he's clear! Did I say Germany's clear? I am the genius.
Lots of energy. Doki calling himself a genius right there for a call he made.
3v5 on throne defense. Let's fucking go, boys.
Okay. They're having lots of confidence right now after that round.
I mean, it was a 2 versus 5-ish. There was 3 of them.
3v5, yeah. It was,
but, you know, maybe Doki has also forgotten Carl's name the same way Fabian did.
Who knows?
I mean, either way, he isn't wrong. They lost the 2 opening bodies. They were limited on their hard breach, which also didn't pop off properly.
Yeah, that's what I was going to be talking about as well. It's like they had the right IDs, or the crossfires were there, it's just the hard breach only destroyed the soft for some reason.
Yeah.
Well, that's always a big blow, because, you know, Blur was set up with there with the diffuser, and instead he had to go through split, which is just a lot more dangerous to go through often.
5 seconds remaining.
When FaZe were on their attacks on this map in group stages, they only got 1 of them
To locate a bomb and defuse it.
against them. And then when G2 were on their defenses against Koi, they got 5 of them. It was a 3-3 against W7M. It was a little bit more of an even-handed showing, at least in the group matches.
Yeah.
So, FaZe really need to capitalize on this first half.
They do. They need to get as many rounds as possible to buy themselves a buffer. Also, attacks have been looking, you know, okay on the previous 2 maps. I mean, it's nothing perfect we saw. Club was better than we saw from Villa, however. Theme Park is a bit more of a complicated map in terms of attacking. And as G2 is going to be putting themselves close to the windows and the doorways of the actual sites. Blur carrying that diffuser with Zofia up onto the rappel. So be careful to not be jumped out upon. Has a drone, will be moving that through. Actually doesn't spot that bullet because he just went to crouch down, but he's seen the opening, and that means that they are aware of the fact that someone could be on that balcony.
Well, there's an opening. Toki removed by Souls. Once again, the first body has gone into the favor here of FaZe on the approach. They at least didn't lose 2 on the back of it. Though they are still trying to find at least another engagement, with the grenades potentially going to loop their way up from underneath. Benja just needs the right call, the right ping, and the right time to go. There's the second drop of a camera. Have to pay attention towards the top of the balcony here. There will be a risk if you pull a pin and you don't have anything to cover, because, well, it doesn't take too long for them to just swing their way around and get a bit more of an angle. That will give the reveal. The reason that flew on by is because nobody's close. So he pulls the pin back in, tries to explode somebody in the site, but they're not there. They've tucked themselves. Arcade, top of the yellow stairs, and otherwise holding on the door, waiting for just somebody from G2. It's Souls. It's the kit on the far end, shot off the window. And with a bit of jump out, a bit of motion, the pre-fire is over the top. They crouch their way back round onto Dragon. But FaZe, they've been able to take a second body without any response.
G2 also not really in a close position to pick up that diffuser, which means that as Alamau goes down now, it is going to be another response. It's only up to Benja, and he doesn't even get anywhere. It's a flawless round from FaZe, who have a very strong response. After dropping that diffuser especially, that round was probably going to be over, with the only way of that winning would be to take down every single FaZe member. But those 2 initial kills FaZe got, just no response from G2, and that is something that Fabian has been hammering on during the Wolves game. It's been something he started shouting over the previous map we've played. And again, the same issues kind of starting to show up.
Slightly different, I would say.
It is slightly different,
with you, because the way FaZe roam and the way FaZe move around a map isn't quick. They'll have 1 loose player that's sort of like a Roomba. They go very slow, low to the ground, and they go from space to space and room to room. And if they're clear, well, they're still looking for a fight.
Yeah.
But unless they have direction, they're just going to wander until they find it. And the longer that goes on, the more likely it is to happen. But it's not that they're directly driving towards it as they do often their attack. There was just, well, we've searched everything else. Let's have a hop out and let's find this fight out here. G2 taking so much time, so much spread out, so much room for this Death Roomba to find its way around. It's always going to find a mess. Whether it cleans it up is just how long G2 takes to offer it to them. Because otherwise, FaZe, especially on a map like this, they sit more close to site. They'll generally keep most of the core locked in, as opposed to G2, where middle of the round, first minute is when they're sort of hoping to get an engagement on their defense often.
Like we're just going to call FaZe Death Roombas now.
Yeah, I think it's the Death Roomba movement.
Of course, but you got the point there, like the player roaming around, but still, like, you need to be working together at least in some capacity, that if a player is providing issues, that you are able to hunt him down and collapse on him. And that's something we didn't see in that last round, as the Death Roomba was allowed to just slowly rotate back, as you mentioned. So let's hope that that changes for now. We need to see these trade kills, otherwise your attack is not going to be successful. Otherwise, those entries will be quite helpful as well. Bo so far went FaZe's way. Of course, the 3v5 we had on Throne was eventually won by G2, but it's not like they were in control of the early parts of that round. It was only when they started executing that things went well for them. As the first grenades are being tossed in, Doki was thinking about going through the middle, but instead he fell back as Cyber takes down Blur as the diffuser dropped again, and there's no reply just yet. Instead is Doki trying to take a fight elsewhere and being worse for it.
I mean, that's twice, well, I was going to say 3 times in a row that they've been able to get that entry kill unreturned at first. They're able to at least find one back on the second pretty quickly, with Alamau leaning into the next engagement. But, you know, they're sort of struggling to get their feet into the building. The cap can pops off, pops Alamau. And there's a take from Virtue. They did lean into that, they just held on, but again, there's just always another angle, always another player right now. FaZe, as I said, they don't set up too far away from site. The swings are coming pretty much from site door, if not 4 steps away from it. However, there's always, because of that, another FaZe player ready to step in. If you keep all of the parts that move your site close, then you can always make sure they can be manipulated. The corner watch, the reveal that he's being watched. 30 seconds and hoping the catch is on the angle. They can sort of sit on the far end. Virtue finds Astro with a hell of a connection, and with 25 seconds and the 1 versus 2, he's going to see if he can try and drive into the next engagement. There's the pop of the mirror window. They're close to his right. He's with the pistol. Just sees the shoulder, but cannot get the connection, and Souls finally puts it over the line there for FaZe.
Managed to get a close here. Virtue, he fought back, but it would have been an ace clutch at that point, and that it's a lot to ask. I don't think we've seen one yet during a side. At least we haven't cast at one. And that just shows you that even if you find 3, these last 2 players, they're just going to be sitting tight. They're going to be holding their angles, and they're going to try and figure out where you're coming from and just punish you for it. We're headed back towards Throne. Now, the initial start of the round was quite good for G2. They managed to shepherd all the players back to the site, but then lost 2 players as a result whilst doing so. So
I was going to say, I gave you a look when you said the start.
Yeah, I know.
I wanted to see how you phrased that.
As in, like, they got the shepherding done, it's just that they didn't pick up the kill. So it's like, the ID went well, the execution just a little bit poorly. And that brings us back to, well, that 3v5 clutch we had. They need to do better now. They need to do the same shepherding, but actually take him down this time.
I believe A-Stream has joined us.
I have heard so as well.
Hey, welcome. G2 versus FaZe. We're on map 3. And FaZe won the coin flip, so they've opted to start on their defense on theme. The first round was pretty intense, and then since then, FaZe have pretty handily taken the next 2 back, and the whole while on this map had full control of the entry, both times getting at least 2 before somebody was then traded out. Okay, now we're up to speed. Let's get into it. Cyber. He's getting himself with a little bit of a movement on here on the back end of Cash. He won't stick around too long. You're trying to make the top floor problematic, but you're also not trying to lose your life because of it. Waste time.
Yeah. That's all you want to do. You want to just waste that time as Alamau is ready to just zoom in with the Gara hook. Drone just confirmed it's going to be clear. Should be entering any second now. There he is. He's inside. He's going to be clearing out the bathroom. Going to be clearing out the office as well. And now figure out that the top might just as well be under some G2 control. However, Cyber's still around in the control room. He has been droned out now, and that means he's going to be an issue. How are they going to be dealing with him? Well, there's a player on the window. The C4 comes through, but Doki quickly shoots it out. So, They're going to be losing a player to that this time.
They've spent a lot of drones. They only have a couple left now. And that, for the whole of theme, for trying to get ideas, is not fantastic. You've lost a lot of intel. It's a wide map, and you can see they're still trying to hunt the first player they were trying to hunt. How many drones have they just sort of thrown into the mill that FaZe has churned up and said, delicious, I'm still going to take more of your time? They haven't even been able to get everybody back to the site itself, and the site itself is still a problem. It's locked in, and you can guess where people are going to be, sure. But it's four corners, a lot of half walls, and problematic places. Those are quick checks when you're sort of trying to enter from either split or the breaches or the back end, depending on which route. There's always going to be multiple guesses to be made.
King and Cyber are going to be the most problematic though, as they are off-site, and those are currently have gone unspotted as well. Calls being made to start opening up on the yellow wall so they can start pushing and potentially go for and execute. Cyber still rotating around and trying to find himself that very first entry. His Gemini replicator might actually be able to find out about that piece of information. Will be shut down, but instantly going aggressive.
Doki, he gets dropped in the engagement. They had 3 people going for the fight. They at least get the kill and will get the player back up with 30 seconds. And they got to start putting the pressure onto the site. The grenade will get the mute jammer. The wall will get popped open. There was a bit of a problem with this last time where that happened. The soft gets destroyed. They don't have the rotate. They're looking for the fight. And, well, actually, it gets all the way this time round. They're looking for the angles. They get the player in the corner down. They want to drive the kit forward in a line blur. He can't quite get it through. There's only a pocket full of seconds. They've got to keep pushing. And there it is! Twice in a row, we've seen G2 force their way into that site.
Let's keep this up! Well played, guys. Good shit, but you're fucking insane!
And if you may have also missed the clips going around, a certain Lord Emperor shouted for the first time in 6 months, by his own admission, to bring the energy back into a team that, to be honest, at that point, I think they needed it.
They needed it. They definitely did. As quickly discussing what the plan will be, how they want to be pushing through, what form of order their grenades need to go in. We're headed back to Punk. I do have to say that that last round, you would almost say poor drone utility. I mean, they managed to get away with it. They used the Gemini replicator to find
I don't think you would almost say. I think
you would say it.
I think you would say
yes.
Poor drone utility.
It's just that, you know, they used A drones to get Cyber, basically knock him around on the map and get him to go towards maintenance. Then they found him there with a Gemini replicator and finally punished him. Luckily for G2, the rest was actually located on the site itself, where there is only so many places they can hide. There's only so many places you can hold off on. And they managed to succeed in taking those down. They managed to find those kills and find the round. But now a different site comes up. If they are struggling with the same drone utility and drone network, they might be in a bit more trouble this time.
G2, will they be able to get the entry a little bit earlier? Technically, the first time they've broken the curse of losing 2 opening bodies. But as weird as it is to say, on theme, they've only been able to take 1 site twice in its Armory Throne. Maybe it's because of familiarity. It was always the sort of big, hefty bastion that all the teams would go with on their first, and I guess you practice that more than any others because of it. But it's the loose gunners, the gunfights, that haven't quite been connecting. Benja, probably credited, and rightfully so, as the reason G2 is still in this game after his heroics on the second map. He's looking to try and start his pressure onto the third, and well, he hasn't quite been able to have the same success on the loose motions and movements he's had prior.
Just waiting patiently for now. He has some utility, and he's hoping to find a player rotating down the yellow stairs if pressure rises a bit too much. And it's going to be coming in, going to be tossed right over. Doki dies. That grenade is also going to be finding an injury, and it's going to be a double kill on either side.
Yeah, that's it. It's suddenly the trade out. They get the lock in there onto Astro. They waited to pull the pin under the cover of the E1D, so they wouldn't just be jumped on and swung down on. And here they've been able to at least hold them off on the opposite end phase. They made sure that they pulled some bodies, but do they know of the one body behind them that's sort of causing a little bit of width problem? Souls. He has some wiggle room, he has some danger, makes his presence known. In minute 10, they can try and deal with it as the breach starts to get popped open. You want to try and slink your way in. just behind the train in the corner and have that as the lockdown, utilizing the mirror window for their own selfish needs. But how do you try and cover that little distance into the site?
So Lee's gonna keep Souls at bay a little bit, meaning he can only be using that one door through the split. We're just gonna be jumping in. He's gonna check the balcony mostly. There's a player out there. Crouch peek comes through, but no connection upon him. Actually takes a lot of damage, finds the kill. That's huge, because now they know one person inside, and Virtue's going to be going for the swing right here. He's trying to go for a bit of a bait as Blur takes damage. King comes out on top.
He's crept his way into the side in the time, though, and there it is. Blur gets the connection. He's going to see if he can try and get the plant down as Souls. He's making his way around the hit of the mirror window, the reveal of the player. They should get the plant down, and they do. They probably can't get out of that. A bit of a reveal. The impact gets him so low, but there's not a second. And now, with a gun either side, Souls has to try and drive himself into 2 1 versus 1s. It's very tricky to pull. They're swinging either side of the doors. It's Benja to look it out. And G2 pull 1 round ahead.
Good, man. Fucking nuts, Byron!
I knew the China guy would kill me, but it's fine. Like, you killed the yellow guy in the meter bench.
Yeah, it was really good plan.
Let's go.
Well, this is the team working as a unit of 5. This is what they've called for. Both teams have a timeout as well. Plenty of time to take it.
Yep.
We've given a bit of context as to how Theme handles for these 2 maps throughout this tournament. For G2, probably the best example is versus W7M. A 3-apiece half went all the way to OT, and then they found it out. FaZe, however, had a much rougher time trying to attack it against M80, only pulling 1 of their attacks in the half. FaZe need an even half here to give themselves more wiggle room to put pressure onto G2.
And it's going to be in the back of their heads, you know, knowing that they have struggled so far with this map on attack. They need that extra round. They need to make sure they give themselves as much time as possible to grow into their attacks.
10 seconds remaining.
And as we go on to what could be the last defense FaZe will play in this tournament, we see a Montaigne being locked in, we see an Ossa being locked in. Lots of shields is what G2 is going to be bringing here. Of course, utility put down on FaZe's side to slow them down as much as they can in terms of castle barricades, banshees, but also the EDDs. How successful is it going to be? It worked against G2 when Wolves did it. Will it work now? Early grenade, they're just waiting for a bit of information, but it seems like no one's out there, so Benja puts it back in pocket, starts opening up some rotations over the bottom floor before he joins the rest of his team.
Yeah, they're seeming to go for a slightly different approach this time. That was poor timing, though. Mistakes happen. The drone was blown out of midair, and, well, drone economy hasn't been the sharpest for G2 throughout this tournament. At least the guns can sort of make up for that. Bullet takes a bit of a scrap inside bathroom. There's firing, just some attention back as well, but doesn't want to stay there too long. There's the drop of the Monty. You'll see the control room start to fall into some control. The call that, yep, Monty's on the door now. They'll get the breach towards the side. The impacts, they're just going to try and do a lot of damage. The second does some back, but the Monty is still standing for now. They're concerned about the break underneath him. They get the angle. They get some more damage. There's the drop. The first falls. Benja, he's able to do some of the work. He's got to move away from that X-Kairos. Please don't go down to the X-Kairos.
Don't think he will. Does a lot of damage.
He's so close to.
I mean, he was a Willa anyway. He just wants to get in quickly so he can go for a plant or either a quicker push forward. C4 comes in. Luckily, he doesn't take down Alamau. His cyber strikes as well will find Doki. Not the confirmation, though.
The Monty, they've been able to get themselves still buried further, but round the back, Cyber, he pushes it a bit too far, and Astro takes care of the Monty. There's Virtue and Blur, and suddenly it's just Vidiking versus the world. He's tucked himself in close, but with a minute on, they have a lot of time to see if they can try and set themselves up for the pinch. He's had to rotate to keep an eye on both sides. He's going back and forth. You have Talon shields too, and you kind of have that as the second step in. They're watching. The swing's going to go wide instead. They're aware of it, so they rotate somewhere else. He's got to cross the divide, take the first fight with the Ossa. Cannot find it. G2 with a 4-2 half into their defense onto Theme.
So good. Let's just continue on defense, guys.
Yeah, that's fucking
Yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah.
I like when Benji's like, let's just continue in defense. We've been doing so good. Yes, you have been doing well. You have been doing better than your first 3 rounds of Villa. Okay, you had some struggles here as well. In between, you managed to get back into it. You managed to turn it around, 4-3. Now they're headed over towards the defense. Now, you mentioned it before, FaZe only managed to find a single round in their attacks. Now they're going up against G2, who really like to play this map.
I mean, that's
more than one now.
That's sort of the setup, isn't it? That's sort of, this went from being the hurdle that G2 needed to surmount, and some people, based on these maps, predicted it would be a 2-1 series because we opened on Club, we opened on a map G2 have banned quite a lot that they've sort of let through. It was a gamble, it didn't quite work. The first 2 maps as well, for context, it was a 7-5 either way to the 2 respective teams. FaZe on the first, G2 on the second. It has been neck and neck throughout this matchup so far, and for the first time it feels like a team is driving a lot of this. And now, depending on the first round, the first result might be the call of a timeout or a bit of motion. The line's been consistent, the Sam cams to see if they can try and get a lockdown. But with Virtue and Blur stepping up, if Doki and Alamau were a reason to drive the team to playoffs, and Benja's been a reason to keep them here, seems like Virtue and Blur really want that mantle for themselves.
Doki's looking to go for a bit of an aggressive first swing. He heard someone just get up on top of the roof. Doesn't quite see any drones to come through. E1D gets activated. Astra takes a lot of damage, but lives with just a single amount of HP. They're rushing through the site.
They're right inside, and Blur is able to get the first Virtue. They get the trade off on the back end of it, and I say they are the 2 names that are really bringing this map together. And they're able to hold off on another quick strike, the same as we saw as the attempted open attack against Villa before here. Vidiking goes aggressive against the Sulis, gets the lockdown, takes a lot of damage in the meantime though. So it'll only take a scrap and a scrape from one of the remaining players. They've got quick firing guns and they're more than happy to swing around. And there's still a lot of structure to take care of here. 1 E, 1 D, 1 Sam Cam. You got to play with what's open, and they know where the diffuser is. They can just shut down.
The player on top of Dragon of G2 that actually had the spot, like, there's 3 people in front of the door, basically saved the life, because that allowed the rest of G2 that was inside, you mentioned it before, Blur, Virtue, you know, to get in a position to fight back, to get those kills, to set themselves up for success. And now the drones roll through. There's only 3 available here over the 2 players still left alive. 1 player spotted out. The second one has been seen before. I believe that all 3 of the G2 members are currently inside. Yes, they are. So all they need to do on FaZe's side is find an opening and then cut the pie. Get them 1 by 1. All G2 need to do is set up crossfires.
That's it. You think of how awkward things are to break through with Split, with the angles that are there. You think of what FaZe did, and well, they attempted a rush. It's that sort of 2-edged sword. You know, they read that there's only 2 G2 players on site. Vidiking slips his way up Split. It's a scrappy fight on a doorway, and well, with the first falling, Virtue watching one end of it. He's got himself 20 seconds and isolated in the next. Not for very long. G2, 4 rounds in a row to put them up 5-2. And a timeout is called.
It was only expected.
Os caras podem estar na ânsia agora de querer terminar o jogo rápido. Então vamos fazer nossas plays, que a gente já treinou, lateralizar café, lateralizar a cozinha. Vamos ter leitura do que eles estão fazendo para primeiro decidir o que a gente vai fazer. Vamos jogar no primeiro mapa, pode tentar posicionar algum drone, a gente decide e faz junto. Usa isso que eu falei, usa a ânsia deles de terminar o mapa logo, que eles estão no lado de vantagem e com a vantagem. Então usa a ânsia deles de terminar o mapa pra gente tentar isolar alguma kill, tá? Jogar bem lento na ânsia deles. E depois, no final do round, a gente executa os 5 juntos com uma contagenzinha e engole os caras. Demorou?
Beleza,
bora,
demorou.
galera. Round. Eu acredito que a gente consiga buscar isso aí, velho.
Bora, vamos
minimizar
caralho.
esse tempo.
Bora.
Bora pra cima, vida. Bora, cara. Bora, pai. Aí, fiquei, bebê. Bora, Suzão.
Okay, well, I hope translations are posted in the comments, but you hope it's the words FaZe need. You hope it's something that can bring them back in. seeing them this late in the game and a player not having a kill, it shows the way to the tournament, it shows the way to the map and the game. It's tough to try and bring yourself back. And now all they have to fight for is what is ahead of them. Ascends is potentially going to get brought. We'll see if that gets locked in alongside the back of a Monty. They're trying to limit some of the freewheeling play and maybe just sort of step for step themselves into the site.
Yeah, that might be it. They might just try and go for a very orchestrated attack right onto the site. Something that doesn't have too much around it. You don't need too much control.
There's a change.
It changes to a bit more of a quicker pace.
Maybe they assumed it was the other side on the top floor.
Could be, yes.
You'd see a more likely Monty on the sort of initiation.
Well, also sense, I think.
Yeah.
Just thinking about it, you often take the computers under control. Like you can easily roll in the sense light screen from there.
Where are you gonna go, Amaru?
That's always a question. But first of all, where's Doki gonna?
He's going outside the door. He's
just leaning out,
hoping to take the fight. He's waiting for a rappel sound. He's waiting for it. Do they have the ping? Are you gonna go up here, Cyber? Oh, he's not gonna risk it. He knew he was being watched, and Cyber was watching it, but he didn't want to risk the engagement over the top, the long animation.
Yeah.
That's why he's opting for the opposite face.
Because as soon as you go up onto the rappel up onto the roof, there's no way of stopping that. You're also not going to be fighting back to a P90 that's going to be firing right at you. So, right call, mate. There is Doki unable to find the entry kill here. But that means that it is still going to be a 5-on-5. And now we can start questioning, where are you going to go, Amaru? What's your plan?
Well, you can have pace coming up underneath. You can have pace onto the windows, a little bit more direct onto sight, just tucked by the side of the fridge, so you have some hard rather than usually hitting the rotate. It's one of the first rounds from FaZe where we haven't had a Lion in a very long period of time. And obviously it's only the sort of second attack on this map, but still it was mixed success, I think. It's definitely a game that G2's woken up to and is more than happy to move and manipulate on the back end. Might be pressure coming towards the mirror on the back. Souls comes up right behind them. There's a swing around the gate. They're tucked in the vault. Bullet gets the first. They're able to find the second and the third. And there's Doki acting to at least stop the Amaru and get one trade back, but with Bullet finding one more. What a fantastic execute this has been from FaZe. Doki gets one on his right. They're all behind him though. And the perfect response from the timeout.
It's what they needed that quick bit of pace. They needed to find themselves a way to stop the momentum of G2 truly. That's what they did here. They quickly humbled them a little bit because they have been quite shouty, or rather, LMR has been quite shouty towards them, and just quickly putting up an execute like that is almost picture perfect. You basically have everything going for you. You get the diffuser on the ground. That's just what you need in a situation like this, because they are currently 2 rounds away from being knocked out of the tournament, from being sent back home. And they don't want that to happen. So they need to pull out these pocket strats, specifically tailored to deal with G2 setups. And now I'm looking over to the left-hand side of my screen and see a fuse that is currently being hovered over. Of course, still some time for it to be potentially picked out. But I'm wondering how they're going to be using this, because it's not like we're in Throne where you can send it in from above.
No, there's not a huge selection of fusible locations.
Okay, they pick it off last second. I was going to say, because if they stick with this, I'm really curious to see how they use it. The Monty has made a reappearance though, so we are going to be seeing that operator to be played out by FaZe. And now the question is, are you going from east or from west? Because if you go from west, you have the opportunity to take down some of these mirror windows without being challenged by them.
Turkey. They wanted to be the first point of contact last time round. They were, unfortunately, the last one standing by the end. Everything was so sudden. So he might be a little bit more direct. Opens an angle, hopes for a fight. Nobody is home. Instead, it's towards the top. FaZe, they're not being sort of too blind in their approach here. And couldn't quite get that off in time with the window open, the motion. There's a player on cams and no, just out of range. And this is what I mean. They seem to have a very good idea of the games that Doki wants to play here.
Doki wants to be getting that first kill for his team so badly. He also wants to be hunted so badly. And that is actually the Solace being spotted out whilst on the gadget. So Doki, no clue he has been spotted right now. He's going to be receiving a bit of pressure soon from FaZe. And if he's the first to fall, FaZe are going to be using that.
Well, they just thought he was still tucked on the other side of the hard. He'd, thankfully for him, moved somewhere else, sees the Monty. He's popping for a reveal. He knows there's a player out there, but doesn't shoot at the right moment and slips away before the pressure becomes insurmountable. Rotates towards the bathroom, hopes to get the width elsewhere, hopes to get more of a direct catch, and just misses the slip on by the impact onto anything else being attempted. And, well, there's the wall being popped open.
He took care of his air jab so he can run into Cash later on to go for a bit of a flank as FaZe now seeming like they can go for an execute. DeMonte slowly starting to work his way towards the site. Air jab actually still up there, so hasn't been able to take care of it. So they already placed a new one indeed. Either of the two. Now they're inside and they can go for a flank.
Yeah, at this point you're sort of thinking, what are we waiting for? The kit is being put down. All 10 players are still alive, and this feels, well, like they weren't quite sure, G2. They'd slipped on by. The breach had come against it. Trades come out, generally in the favor of G2, but the time is ticking. They have window control. They have a Monty. How do you push them off? A bit of an explosion, a bit more damage to Vidaking, but he wins out against Virtue. The hop through, and they're going to see if they can bully, but Vidaking is still doing the damage. The Monty, he's pushed in a corner. They're trying to get the shots on the side. There it is, finally, and the take on the opposite end, but he's got to reload, and the whip is coming round, and FaZe just in a 5 versus 5, get a plant, and, well, understandably, G2 take the timeout. Let's hear what they're talking about.
It's great and all that we have solutions, but we need to do it middle of the round. We need to do it middle of the round. It's great we have solutions, but we need to do them mid-round. Like that round, we have so much time to send Jake underneath of C4 that monster. We need to take care of, we need to take care of the easy solutions here. Let's not make the game more difficult. The two of you need to calm yourself down a little bit. You're starting to stutter, Carl. We know how good you can be, so let's get back on track. Okay. We calm ourselves down. Also, we get the simple solution.
We're getting sidetracked by the Cafe guys. It's obviously a Dragon Quest. They're nomad enough. I even said they're gonna push China, you know?
Yes, I said. Full focus. Let's fucking go, boys. Full energy again. Let's fucking get this done.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was asking. I needed someone to go on my camp.
Guys, you're gonna go back out and they have the drone to surprise them because now they know we're gonna try to go back. Yeah, go back.
Guys are really terrible.
Okay, well, that's it. No more timeouts from either team. From this point onwards, it's just a few rounds of Siege, one victor, one loser, one continues a lower bracket fight today, and one gets dropped out the tournament. G2. They were up 5-2, 2 rounds have slipped through their fingers here after the timeout from FaZe.
Yep.
If they can have the same response, this is as good as in the bag. It seemed like they're sort of saying, look, we have time we're not using here.
Also, we're overcomplicating things, right? Because he said use the simple solutions.
Yeah.
Which means that they've been trying to go for things that might just be too complicated at that moment in time. Either way, they're going for a new bunk hold. They're not going to be going down to throne straight away. Of course, we haven't really seen the proper attack from FaZe clan there as they went for a rush attempt that was quickly stopped by Blur and Virtue.
Well, another Monty. 3 C4s, Dangers are soft, a Solace and a couple of impacts, and an Echo Drum. They've really sort of got most of what you'd want to try and stop the Frenchman Mountain from rolling his way in and doing what he did on the previous round, which was the perfect cover for the kit to get planted. Bullet has started to pop off, I'm going to say a little bit more than he has. I'm not saying pop off specifically, but he's popped a couple of heads, and that's a good sign for FaZe. They need
showing up
all of their players, exactly. Benja, in the meantime, still hasn't spent a lot of his energy on the previous map, and, you know, if he becomes a little bit more of a danger on their defense, that's something G2 could really get behind.
So they're talking about full energy again. They need to give it all they have. Because if you don't win this one, there is nothing to go up against anymore afterwards. So, give it your all to get through now. RC Roteros are being used, only one left from Bullet just to get rid of some of that utility early on.
Goodbye, A-Stream.
Oh, goodbye, A-Stream.
I believe.
I didn't know. I didn't hear. Either way, it is going to be Doki trying to get himself hunted again. He's taking down some drones. He's still running around the top of Dragon. And now the multi is coming after him. Now they're going to be giving in to his wishes.
There it is. They have the Echo, and they need to try and rotate someone back round. There's some support. It's the C4 that gets them. And they said, let's deal with the money the simple way. Nothing more simple than blowing them up top of Dragon. Cyber does get one back. They're able to at least get revenge against Virtue, the C4 wielder that took them out. But the trade, oh, it's still coming across the board. Bullet, they're able to find one. Benja does find souls at the same time. They get some control. But as more damage comes across, there's another rotate. That's just punished here. Benja caught out. Doki finds Bullet in the meantime. We're still seeing a couple of these mistakes from the guns of G2. They're sort of running around underneath. Well, that's dangerous. Blur is gone. Doki in the 2 versus 1. 40 seconds. Cyber and Vidaking seeing if they can try and piece it together. They have time. They have only a single drone. And that grenade will do a bit of damage to Doki. He's drifting on. He thinks he might know where a fight is. It's round to his left. If he can isolate a 1 versus 1, this could be big. There's the first, and there it is. Popped around on the door, the pre-fire towards the second. You're looking at time limitations. Vidaking, he's going to air jab it, drop the drone, and rotate his way towards the chassis. Do they know? There's the impact. There's the catch. There's the play. There's the fight, and Doki just gets the wing!
Let's go, guys!
Perfectly played to get rid of that air jab.
I was scared for a second there because, you know, it's surely he's going to go off at that point, but then the first whiff as well. By the way, perfect grenade from Cyber, just taking down the mirror, bringing it into a 1v1. And then he wanted to go get that plan down.
It's the best operator in the game.
Guys, I don't think they will rush, so be ready for the wrong.
I want to know who the best operator in the game is now.
Solus, I assume. I think that is the tagline for Solus.
Yeah, definitely a good operator to use on your defense here. Just so much information you can get out of it. Different than a Pulse, as Pulse gets heartbeats.
Yep.
This gets everything that has an electronic beat. Now, 4-6, map and series point for G2. And we're headed back towards Throne. Where it started on their defense, they had a rush round they averted. FaZe, what are you going to do? You going to bring pace again? On a round as important as this, on a round that could be your final one in the major? Or are you going to be slowing it down just slightly? And see if you can go for a more traditional take. Either way, Doki's going to go for another set of spawn peaks. He's waiting for a repel sound. This time he does have Benja quite close to him. Not actually looking out a window either, but
ready for it.
Ready for a jump out.
They're hoping they can sort of force the width here on the approach of Doki, and Benja can swing into that as a surprise factor, but nothing is being gifted to him. How long does he sit? He's happy he's not being droned. They're happy not to even push it. FaZe aren't taking the risk. They're not going to fall for the bait. They're instead going to sort of play themselves in as they've done before. They go with the direct route. Please don't, Doki. You're being watched. Oh, he was so piddly close to the fight. The diffuser's still close. They're baiting the angle. The drone comes out. There's the E1D. There's the jump out. There's the fight. No! He cannot quite get it. The timing is away from him. A lot of damage on the risk. Might be the best operator in the game, but unfortunately couldn't find the connection. They almost lose out. Benja is the second there too.
As long as Benja stays alive, they still have a good fighting chance, but that diffuser being used as a bit of a bait there. Successful. We saw BDS do it as well in their game yesterday. But now Cyber pushes on, hoping to find another entry. Now E1Ds are giving away some spots. The Gemini Replicator is going to be confirming whether or not a rotation has come through in the meantime. And some of the G2 members are falling back. They need to go. Oh, Alamo just escaping with his life right there. Fida King just too slow to chase him down.
Yeah, he's got himself now on a back line. He's hoping it's gone a bit unchecked. He wants to be another loose problem the FaZe have to deal with, but they're step by step. And to be honest, catching G2 out on rotations has been a pretty good game from them throughout all of this so far. They're holding on. Tucked on the corner, waiting for just something to drift their way by FaZe. A steady roll of drones, a steady catch and intel, attention towards Split, pressure onto the walls. They're looking in towards Oil as well, and the breach starts to come together. They still have a man advantage, and Benj is close to the death as well. Can they get this? Look at the positions where you have Alamau, where you have Virtue. It's such a gamble, but sometimes it pays off. Virtue, a huge take back. Alamau, desperate for the next. There's more of a breach, but he's not handing it to them. He knows they gotta leave this route. He knows they got 20 seconds. Does he know there's 2 of them? Do they know about him? Peppering shots, pre-firing. Benja with 1. There's Alamau for 2. Bullet is all that is left for FaZe's hope of staying in SI 2023. But it is a goodbye from G2. And they will progress through the lower bracket.
A very hard-fought victory coming through from G2. The first map went away from them barely. The second, they won just as close as a margin. And now they take the final one, 7-4. An extra round to spare before we went to 12. FaZe, their story ends here. They are knocked out. They will be going home. And G2, they will be facing on Dark Zero later today.
2 teams that had what can only be described as major changes and changes for the major. And at this point, it was always going to be a deep story of which one would lose, because 2 of them could rightfully have made